Hi, I'm John, and I just received a package. And inside are two Vegitos. Why? Well, for some background, I asked you all in a poll which pose is cooler, this one or this one. The two Vegito figures have similar poses to the two options of the poll, and the winner would decide which figure I would use to create a Super Saiyan 3 Vegito, specifically based off of this fan art, which seems inspired by Vegeta Super Saiyan 3 and Dragon Ball Daima. And this is what you chose after 2,200 votes. I guess I'm using this one. Now that we have the body, we need the hair. That's where this guy comes in. Perfect hair, but in the face? Well, we got some work to do. Oh, real quick, I bought these three figures along with other figures I'm going to customize directly from Japan through today's sponsor, JP Fans. If you've ever tried hunting down a figure from Japan, especially stuff that never hits US stores, you know how painful that can get. JP Fans is a proxy buying service. They purchase items from Japanese online marketplaces on your behalf, the ones that are normally only accessible to Japanese citizens. They'll receive the items and store them in their warehouse in Japan until you're ready to have them pack it up and ship it to you. And here's a move that I actually use. Since JP Fans stores your items for up to 60 days, I let a few orders stack up in their warehouse and bundle them all into one package. That means one international shipping fee instead of 3 or 4. It's way cheaper. If you sign up through my link in the description, you'll receive a 15% off shipping coupon, plus additional coupons that can save you up to $86 on international shipping fees. If you're already importing figures from Japan, this is a no-brainer. Check out the link below and save more. Thanks to JP Fans for sponsoring today's video, and let's get started. This Vegeta has a cute baby face that needs some edges. I cut along his entire face, slowly sharpening all of these round areas using a hobby knife. I'm also not a big fan of this Vegeta smile, which sort of looks like a kid who just stole some candy. I used some epoxy sculpt to fill in the gap and began sculpting a new mouth. I'll be honest, when I first started I was really confident, but after many hours, I started thinking that maybe I should have kept the smile because I just could not get the look right. I wasn't getting anywhere with the mouth and had to take a break. As a distraction, I moved up to his hairline. I slowly filled in the entire thing and left his widow peak since I figured I would just glue his little bangs on top of it. Speaking of little bangs, yoink. After pulling the hair out, I realized that the underside of these bangs actually sat inside the top of the forehead. And that means I had to do some real dirty work. After making sure the hair sat flush against his forehead, I started to cut down the front of his hair in an attempt to blend everything together. Then I added some putty and sculpted in the hairline. Then I went back to trying to fix the face that I had messed up. It's sort of hard to tell on camera, but the silhouette was just not lining up correctly. I added some cheeks back to his face, but sculpted it to be a bit more angular. Then I added in his lips and his smirk line using bits of clay and blending rather than trying to draw lines with the sculpting tool. Oh shoot, I forgot about his earrings. Gonna need this again. And gonna do a little transplant. I added some wood fill around all the sculpted areas to, well, fill in, any of the potential areas that I didn't blend well enough with the clay. It was at this point I realized what was missing. To me, his nose wasn't big or sharp enough. So I added a new one. Once everything dried, it was time to do some sanding. What am I sanding over here? It's actually his neck. I actually had to bulk it up a bit to get this Vegeta head to fit on properly. Let's move on to the next big change I need to make, his hand. At first I was going to resculpt the fingers to match the pose, but I managed to find this leftover Goku black hand from my Gohan Beast Rose custom, which works perfectly. I chopped off his purity ring and filled in his fingernails with some putty. Definitely easier than making new fingers. Then I pulled the Jaime Lannister and cut the hand off. Then I drilled a hole to make room for Goku Black's hand peg. I utilized the original hand peg to fit into Vegito's arm to make sure the joint is as strong as possible. Then I sculpted in a few wrinkles into his gloves to hide the seams. And with that done, it's prime time. Let's start with the sash, which I've decided to make orange. The in-canon explanation is that in Daima, Goku and Vegeta have slightly different outfits with slightly different colors, but in reality, I just like the orange belt better. I did a shading layer on all the orange pieces, and then I airbrushed a layer of bright golden orange for the blending layer, similar to the manga colors. Since this was the other main area that needed to be masked off, I did the skin next. The shading layer is done in brown as usual, but this time I used a mix of the new Kaleido orange flesh mixed with a little extra orange. For the clothing, I decided to go with a lighter shade of blue across the board, this time using some blue mixed with a little brown as the shading layer. And the blending layer is some light gray mixed with blue. For his hair, I'm going for a paler golden color, so the depths of his hair are being done in a cream yellow and yellow ochre. The blending layer is done with a paler yellow, even though it doesn't really look like it on camera here. And finally, for the glove, it was the moment of truth to see if it all comes together. Used a dark blue gray as the shading layer, a light gray for the blending layer, and a little bit of white as highlights. Alrighty, it looks good. Next, I want to make the actual energy balls. I plan on using this 4mm mold and UV resin, but the little beads that came out of this mold are just way too small. Next I tried this one, which was the only mold I found on Amazon with a 6mm size, but the molds were only half of a bead each, which couldn't make consistent spheres. So my next course of action was to buy 400 glass beads. I used some UV resin as an adhesive, which works really well on these clear parts. Now that we have these Mewtwo looking hands, it's time to paint them yellow. This was the perfect opportunity to try out Gaahleri's Kaleido translucent paints, which are designed to color clear parts, and it performed perfectly. The last thing I had to do was to paint in the facial details, starting with the eyes. I decided to paint in the anime lines on his face by hand to help emphasize both my sculpted mouth and the minimal sculpted line work on the original head. The last bit I had to paint on his head were the earrings. Speaking of line work, I used panel liners on the tips of his boots and painted in his soles with some gray. Then I added a matte clear coat to protect the paint. As a final touch, I added some UV resin to the Batara earrings to give them some extra shine. And all that was left to do was to put them back together.
Yosha!
Here's the final result. I'm incredibly satisfied with how the hairline turned out. And the energy balls? The translucent paint is a game changer and opens up adding more key effects to my custom figures in the future. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks to JP Fans for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you register through my link in the description to get your 15% off and an additional $86 worth of shipping coupons. Thanks to Rifty Beats for letting me use his music. And of course, thanks to all my members. With special thanks to my newest member, Luffy Straw Hat 10. Membership to the channel is now $2.99 a month, where you can help support the channel directly and get some behind the scenes looks of what I'm working on. You can find everything I use in the video linked in the description as affiliate links. If you buy anything after you click the link, it'll help support the channel without any additional cost to you. And if you like my work, like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you know exactly what's coming up next. Thanks for watching. See you next time.